even coming back to your earlier question, or like how have we continued to operate amongst this, very competitive climate with significantly bigger players who've got Huberman and Rogan and Hugh Jackman and stuff on their portfolio of partners. And we're sitting here as a lean, mean machine that can just operate quickly and move into opportunities fast and pull out of opportunities fast. And so it's been to our advantage to stay lean the last 2 or 3 years, especially after, I think, experiencing what it was like to be more of a enterprise.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Going Beyond the Deal podcast. Today on the show, we have Chase Ramey, the CFO of Organifi, a company that is, just doing the right thing out there. It's a leading health and wellness brand built on high quality, efficacious ingredients. We're going to talk about the challenges of running a supplement business where the focus is efficacy and things that are really going to serve people beyond just the marketing of, what a lot of people would consider snake juice. We're going to talk about the things that make Chase who he is. We're going to talk about the journey of, working for a big four accounting firm to actually going out and living a life with purpose and doing something and just following intuition. And you never know what can happen from there. So I'm really excited to go beyond the deal with Chase Ramey and you guys today. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Going Beyond the Deal podcast. Today, I have my friend, Mr. Chase Ramey, on the show. He's a CFO of a leading health and wellness brand built on high quality, efficacious ingredients. That means they're actually working for you. Efficacious. I had to practice saying that a couple times, Chase, before we got on here, though. Organifi. An amazing company that I had heard of many, many years ago through Jason Ferrugia. I tried some of the product before, really blew my mind, and then got connected to Chase through my friend Phil Alberstadt, and I couldn't believe I actually got a chance to work with Chase and learn about the company and try different things. But today's episode, we're going to talk about scaling a purpose-driven brand and working alongside your wife, traveling all over the world, hosting podcasts. I hope I can live up to your skill set and everything, because seeing you on camera is pretty. It was a little intimidating for me to ask you to be on the show, but I'm excited to be here today.
Michael, thanks so much, man. I'm really honored to be here, and yeah, we're gonna have a great conversation.
Very cool. Very cool. So before there was Organifi, before there was any growing such a well-known brand like this, where did Chase come from?
Yeah, I'm born and raised in Washington State, Spokane, Washington. Grew up Eastern Washington, North Idaho. Went to a liberal arts school locally and played small college basketball. So I was always an athlete. And found myself, I joke and say I conned my way into a big four accounting and business services career at Deloitte, and kind of came out of the gate hot. Like, it's a very high intensive early career to be working for Deloitte. And I spent my first, 5 years of my career just in the absolute meat grinder, which was very fun. Sort of killed my soul at the same time. But I was up and down the West Coast predominantly to start my career, and had very much a accounting orientation. Mm-hmm. Was in Seattle, Los Angeles, and then kind of found my way into San Diego before I ultimately jumped ship over to Organifi. But there's a lot obviously within that, but that's essentially how I landed in this sort of like accounting CFO type career trajectory.
So it's funny. So you said, I have to ask you, you said con your way. So what do you mean con your way into this? You're a brilliant dude. You could obviously get a job wherever you wanted. How do you con your way in?
Oh, well, I swear my brain didn't turn on until I was like a sophomore or junior in college. I was a total jock. I was a successful youth athlete. And I thought that I was just going to play basketball forever. And then I realized, one day I was a 5'10" white guy playing at a Division III university. And I was like, man, I got to figure out, how I'm going to make money in this world. And I I've always been like very, very success driven. And, almost at the cost of my own well-being at times. That's my programming. Some combination of both nature and nurture has just oriented me to, be successful.
Yeah.
And when I kind of realized that there was going to be a pretty hard stop to my athletic career in college, I was like, man, I got to figure out what I'm going to do. And I've kind of been a dumb jock along the way and kind of just coasted. So I literally went into the business school at my university, which was, it's modest. It's a liberal arts school. And I'm like, how can I make the most money possible without it's too far gone for me to go back into the sciences. It's too, I got no interest in being, a teacher, going into law or anything along those lines. And they were like, well, we have had some alumni that have gone and worked at these big firms in accounting. So, and they had a decent accounting program. I was like, all right, whatever, I'm going to do accounting. And it was, I was fortunate enough to tap into some of the larger university recruiting programs with big four schools like Deloitte, KPMG, PwC, Ernst & Young. And it was like, honestly, man, it was through personality. It was just through the ability to communicate, the ability to talk about my strengths, like make jokes, like just seem like a normal person. I really tried to lean into the like, hey, I may not be a 4-point, but I enjoy my life, and I lean into having like deep connections with the things that I'm a part of and or the people that I'm a part of these things with. I think that stood out. And I had an interesting enough background, like, hey, what's this liberal arts school guy doing applying to these, big four gigs? And so I jokingly say I conned my way into it because my resume did not look like the rest of the folks I was hired with. A lot of the folks I spent my early career with were, they were big university, big fraternities, families that had legacy, multiple generations as partners in these firms and such. And so I was a little bit of out of my lane, but I kind of always have leaned on my ability to communicate myself and to ask a lot of questions and not be afraid of making mistakes or asking dumb questions. And it's served me.
It's so funny because now that we've had this conversation, I totally get why you and I have always just built rapport very easily together, because we essentially have the same story. But I wasn't the, quote unquote, dumb jock or whatever. I was the guy playing guitar, writing really cool songs. And I was like, this is awesome. People scream for me all the time in these like little clubs. Like, I'm totally going to make it as a rock star. And then you like get to this weird point in your life where you're like, oh, snap. Like, there's a pretty good chance that this isn't going to happen for me. Like, you're not going to be the first draft pick for the Lakers. Like, you knew that wasn't going to happen. You're like, oh, shit, I better get my stuff together here and figure this out. And for me, like, I also wasn't the 4.0. I didn't have that. I always I joke around. People are like, oh, you went to Fairleigh Dickinson University. I'm like, well, I did, but I technically never stepped foot on campus. I went to the local community college and went to Fairleigh Dickinson at nighttime and online, and then got the piece of paper from them. Right.
Sure.
But the ability to communicate and the ability to build rapport is a skill set that's just invaluable. And before we hit record, like, we were just talking about that, right?
Yeah.
So totally understand a lot more now. So you had the opportunity to work, for one of the big four. You realized that probably wasn't the right environment for you. You learned a lot from it. So what would you say would be like a couple of the biggest things that you learned from working at Deloitte? And then what did you learn that you realized, like, I could not do this role for the rest of my life, and you started looking for something else?
Yeah, I think, something I'd already been accustomed to, which is just like ungodly hard work. Being an athlete, I was despite the small college atmosphere, the program that I was a part of in college especially was extremely difficult. It was extremely almost militant. And so continuing that into my career at Deloitte with, you hear about the crazy accounting seasons of hours worked, and it's no joke, man. It's weeks at a time where you are working from the time you get up till the time you go to bed, and you go to bed at 1 or 2 p.m. And you're on the road. And so the meat grinder atmosphere, although it was brutal, I'm glad I did it in my early 20s because it really developed a muscle for just being able to white knuckle.
Yeah.
And you've got to have it. You can't live your career like that, which is, maybe one of the things that I learned at Deloitte was you can't white knuckle 24/7 without having a full blown, brick wall hit you. But knowing when and where to throttle and push on the gas was a really important muscle for me to hypertrophy early in my career. I would say the other thing that I learned really, really well was personalities. Like, the most challenging environments throughout my entire career have never been the technical complexity of anything. I can always figure that out. I can always pull on a resource to get support when it comes to anything technical.
Agreed.
But egos and personalities and what people want, what people are looking for, how people receive feedback, how people give feedback, understanding those nuances and the variety of currents down any sort of stream, whether that be the relationship with your client, the relationship with your team members, your superiors, the people below you. In an environment like Deloitte, you can be 25 years old like I was and have a team of 20 people in India that you're managing. And that can be very overwhelming for a young person who barely knows themselves, much less a domestic and international team of wildly diverse backgrounds. And to be looking up to a 25-year-old to give, direction is overwhelming at times. So really for me, it was leaning into personality, understanding how people work, how people tick, what they're looking for, how they work best. Like, I'm fortunate enough to be in an era where there's an allowance and a tolerance for a diverse working style.
Yep.
And I think the environments and the team atmosphere, like there is so much of it at Deloitte, really plays into the need to understand how other people operate effectively. And so 5 years at Deloitte gave me 20 years worth of experience when it comes to some of those really, really important components of being successful. So I can't remember. Did you mention 3? Those were definitely a couple.
No. I think you definitely hit it on the nose here. I mean, but what's interesting though is like you hit these, like you had the opportunity to work at one of the big 4, big 5, whatever you want to call it, however you want to rank them. At that point, you pretty much probably have the choice. Now that you've accomplished that for 5 years, you've white knuckled the meat grinder. I never heard that, but I'm going to steal it and use it myself, right? Because it's the same thing with investment banking, the meat grinding of being an analyst. You could have gone anywhere, but you end up in San Diego. Do you meet Drew? Like how do you end up saying, okay, I'm going to take a chance on what it was? Was it a startup at the time? Like it was just an idea? Like it was just an idea. So how do you go from, you could have gone anywhere in the world to going right there? Like what was the feeling? What was the moment?
Yeah, and I went to Deloitte because of their clients, and the traditional path is to eventually move on to one of these SEC filing, 10K filing, Fortune 500 company clients that Deloitte has and become the CFO at Nike, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what I wanted to do. For a long time, I wanted to work in professional sports. I wanted to go work in the NBA in some office role, right? Like I knew the former Deloitte colleague who'd gone on and worked as the CFO for the Seahawks. And so I'm like, okay, that's what I want to do. But man, I hit the brick wall. I got very burnout. Like I said, full throttle, 24/7. For me, it took a toll physically. It took a toll on I was very young. I married my high school sweetheart very young. And we had, with myself on the road and traveling crazy amongst a host of other things, I'd gotten divorced at 26. I was in Southern California, but I was, and like on the surface looked great. I was very lean, very active, working out all the time, but my inner health was deteriorating. I hit physical and a really emotional exhaustion by the time I was about 27, 28 years old. And it was just like, man, is this it? I'd realized that I'm a novelty seeking individual and I thrive on I thrive on a combination of novelty and routine. But in order to appreciate routine, you have to introduce novelty seasonally. In order to appreciate novelty, you have to become a routined individual. And I was just full routine to the point that it was repetitive, it was unconscious, and it was just slowly draining the inspiration that I had for my work.
That
in
was
my
really
own.
beautifully put, by the way. I have
Oh,
to
thanks.
say, like the way that you express that, it really spoke to me, and I think a lot of people realize that. But I really like the way you put that.
Yeah, yeah. So I was starting to understand a little bit more about those things myself. I'd always been an athlete, so exercise was always critically important to me. But I got to the point where I was observing my own behavior, and exercise had become this coping mechanism for the stress and the chaos of my own life.
Mm-hmm.
And I was over exercising. I went in to get blood work done when I was 27, and I had the hormones of like a 50-year-old because I just been burning myself out. So at that point, this was like 2017, 2016 timeframe, and podcasting was very, very new still. But there were some OGs in the fitness space that had been doing podcasts. Ben Greenfield, Sean Stevenson, Mind Pump. These guys had kind of come out of the gate in the mid 2010s, late 2010s. And I started just consuming it like crazy. I'd always thought health was just like eating enough protein and exercising.
Yeah.
And there's so many other components to it. So I just dove in deep. Amongst that, this was my own health journey. I'd heard this guy named Drew Canole on one of these early podcasts talk about Organifi green juice, and it has this thing called ashwagandha, and it's very supportive of cortisol, which for me was a priority. My cortisol levels had become extremely irregular through some of the blood work that I was doing. So I was trying to get a grip on not only my exercise, but the way that I was dieting, and was I, giving myself micronutrients. And I was learning about these things called adaptogens, which, Organifi is based on this idea of adaptogenic botanicals. And so I'm like, man, I'm going to try this green juice. Order the green juice. I personally loved it. And I looked on the label and I was like, oh my God, this is a San Diego company. I'm working out of San Diego and Los Angeles at the time. And I was like, these guys are going to blow up. This is a great product. This Drew Canole guy seems very charismatic and interesting. I got to get to know these people. I wanted to make them a client for Deloitte, right? Get my name in lights, go find this startup company. So it's like 2 blocks from the Deloitte office in downtown San Diego. So I go down and I literally just knock on the door, and because it's basically just a closet in an office downtown San Diego. Open the door and Drew Canole's right there, and he literally just gives me a hug. And I'm like, where am I? What world have I stepped into? Which, dude, at the time, man, I needed a freaking hug. Like, I was tired, and I was divorced, and I was a couple years after having really like rebooted my whole life. Yeah. And I was like, dude, I just received like the most nourishing hug from a human being in my entire life. And I'm 27 years old. I met the 3 or 4 other people that made up Organifi at the time. One of which was May Steigler, who continues to this day to be one of my best friends. And I went into that experience going, hey, I'm going to make Organifi a client. And I stepped out of the, hour or 2 that I spent with them hanging out, shooting like little miniature basketball hoops in their office, talking absolutely nothing about business. I stepped out and called my parents, and I was like, I just figured out like where I need to work. I need to start my whole life over. Like, this is where I need to be. I just felt this. I live in my head. I'm a very I hate to say intellectual, because I'm not saying I'm an extremely smart person. I just spend a ton of time in my head. The amount of miles that I put, yeah, man. Like, and so for me, when I get a nudge from my intuition, it's usually really loud, and it's infrequent. I wish it was more often, but occasionally I get this overwhelming feeling like this is the place for me. Yeah. And that was it. Yeah. So I just started like, hey, can I help you guys in any way? And so I started doing some contracting work while I was still at Deloitte. The vision that I had for like, I'll be the CFO there someday or something like that. It was like, there was so much work that needed. There was everything. It was ground zero. So it was like, no bookkeeping. All right, we need bookkeeping. No real like cash flow management. No real understanding of what that even means. Operating the business out of the bank accounts, which is just totally traditional. That's how you start up. Yeah. So I did some contracting work, and then ultimately they were like, hey, do you want to come work for us full time? Lots of support is needed here. And I took a massive pay cut. I left over half my salary to join Organifi as a W-2 employee in 2018, and jumped ship. It was hit pretty much every need that I had at that time. it was going to be an environment where I could really, really understand health at a deeper level, because I was going to be surrounded by people who held similar ethos to myself around well-being, but also had a lot more of the technical expertise than I'd been able to accumulate.
Yeah.
And then I was having opportunities that were still somewhat in line with what my skill set had been up to that point, 5 years into a financial and accounting career. And an environment where I really wanted to get into as either a hobby or a profession, which was this kind of like podcasting content creation realm. I was really excited that Organifi had already tapped a few early leaders in the podcasting wellness influencer realm. And I was really excited about developing relationships with those folks, learning from those folks, potentially even seeing if there was an opportunity for Organifi or myself to step into that lane to some degree. And so, yeah, for me, it was crazy to take such a financial haircut in the form of my income, but it was such an overwhelming nudge from my soul to do it that I just couldn't deny it. So that's ultimately, 2017, I was a contractor. 2018, I jumped in as a W-2 employee. I started out as just an accountant. There was no title. It was just like start the accounting process.
You're the numbers guy. You're the numbers
guy.
Figure out the numbers for me.
Yeah. And which is funny because like at Deloitte, you skip all that. You skip like bookkeeping, you skip like traditional accounting, and you're in more of a consultant role. Yeah. And so this was actually a lot of reverse engineering of some things and some concepts that I knew, but having never done them myself, it was very challenging. And this was before ChatGPT. So, I was really having to comb through forums on how to, start up bookkeeping and things of that nature. But it was great, and it evolved. I've had 1 million roles at Organifi in the last 8 years. And some of that has included financial and accounting work. Most of it has, but it's been a bit of everything.
Yeah. I feel like since I've gotten to know you over the last year, it's been one of those things where it's like you almost have like dual roles. You wear kind of several hats in this. I think like I would almost say CFO/COO. Like you're very good at the kind of the vision and making sure you keep everybody okay. We have to row this direction. Like we got to make sure we're in sync here. But one thing I want to highlight on for the listeners, and I think you would very much agree with me on this, is you need to take the time to have that deep introspection to really think about kind of where you are right now. What do you want to be and how do you want to be in this world? If you just kept going with your routine over and over and over again, that can be a very dangerous place to be if you don't take the time to look in the mirror, look at yourself and say, okay, is this really me? And looking for those opportunities. Like, one of my favorite books in the world, and now I'm going to send it to you if you don't have it, is, The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn. It was written in like 1911. And most people would say, how is a book written over 100 years ago going to be meaningful to someone? But it's just what happened where you said, this company is 2 blocks from my office. I should walk to that company and knock on the door. Yep. And then randomly, this person gives you a hug in a moment when you needed it most. And I'm not joking around about that. Like that is something it's a part of something much bigger than you and I could ever understand. But doing what you did is something that I would recommend to anyone. If you feel that nudge, you have to lean into it at least. Like, you know what? Drew could have answered the door and you would have been like, oh, I should have never knocked on that door. Well, at least he knocked on the door to find out from it, right? And then when he gave you a hug, you're like, okay, what? Like, there's something bigger here, and then you went into it. So I think it's a beautiful story, man. And it's just the more and more we communicate, the more and more I realize, like, we're definitely cut from the same cloth. So, I understand, you come in, you're now officially the quote unquote numbers guy at Organifi. You're going to keep everybody rowing in the right direction. I already know the answer to this, but for the listeners, I think this is really, really important. What makes Organifi so unique in a space that's so overly crowded there's so much hype, there's so much promises. You type into Google or anything and you say, how do I do this, right? And there's like a million different snake oils that come out, and different things you can try, and companies that, with all due respect to Organifi, that are much larger than Organifi, but they're putting out a lot of like just shit that we don't really know what it is, with really bad promises. Talk to me about Organifi and what really separates you guys in this market.
Yeah, I mean, from day one, Organifi has been about quality and efficacy, and the products speak for themselves. In an environment like the climate that we live in, digital marketing, larger brands that operate by a playbook of raise as much capital as possible, snag as much market share as possible, buy up every piece of digital ads real estate that's out there, and squeeze out the brands that are unable to participate in that space. We have to have high efficacy products. We have to have quality. And fortunately, that's been the case since day one. All props to our founder, Drew, because he's been educating about high quality, high efficacy adaptogens, botanicals, and a host of other, supplemental functional medicine related topics for years. I mean, he's like OG influencer, early internet, early Facebook, YouTube. The guy had put himself out there and made himself known. So we've always had this backbone of legitimacy, thanks to our founder, who's been consistent in speaking about this for well over a decade. And then it's been our continued dedication to products that work. Like, it makes it way easier to sell when your products work and they speak for themselves. It's like, you need to acquire a customer, but then in many, many cases, you're going to have a loyal customer for a very, very long time when they're trusting the marketing and the messaging that's coming out about the products you're placing into the marketplace. And I would say that's the backbone of everything. It's a digital marketing world. The roller coaster ride that it's been from a top line and bottom line perspective has been all over the place. I mean, it's been high and low and good and bad. But at the end of the day, the products are of the utmost quality. The people have had the utmost integrity behind the products. And I think that will withstand the test of time.
So, I mean, that's the one question that I really just keep thinking about. How did you balance and manage the growth of Organifi when it's funny because I heard this expression the other day with green juice, right? Like, it's like there's a lot of green juices out there that are essentially just tap water with green food coloring in them, right? How do you keep up with people that are going to literally pump money to get the best return on ad spend to just sell as much product as possible when they know they're not selling an efficacious product, right? How do you manage that, right? Because there's people out there that are much bigger than Organifi, right? But they're not doing the right thing. And you guys, like, I know that like, you would never, sway from your true belief. Like, how do you manage that, though? It must be really hard.
It's difficult, and we've made a ton of mistakes. And I'm no marketer, so like, everybody's getting the purview of an accountant / financially lensed individual over here. But we've tried to play by the playbook of big brands, and it doesn't work for us. We have made a lot of mistakes on the front end of our marketing over the years, but we've also had some huge wins, and it's with precision marketing that we do that. And candidly, we've been able to scale. Like, I mean, I could give you a candid college course on how to scale a business without taking outside capital. We've been cash flow based funded since day one on our own operations. Now, we've pulled on some boutique credit lines, but you're not getting a commercial credit line. You're not getting a traditional lending vehicle in our space ever. I'm 8 years in. I'm still beating on the door of traditional commercial lending facilities, and it's not happening. Your e-com, you've got no AR, you've got no PP&E on the balance sheet, your inventory is lean. And so a bank's like, what am I supposed to collateralize here? Your vision? So it's been very, very difficult, and it's been credit card roulette. It's been the cocktail of boutique credit facilities that at times, man, I've had sleepless nights because the credit cards are all maxed, but we have to keep running ads on the platforms in order for us to drive enough cash flow to keep the lights on at the business. So I'm every 2 to 3 hours changing out credit cards on the back end of YouTube ads and Facebook ads as we're scaling the business 5 or 6 years ago, unable to sleep because if we max a credit card, the platform kicks you off for 12 hours. That 12 hours completely submarines your ads and gives you, probably loses out on hundreds of thousands of dollars of revenue, not to mention the cash flow from that. So, dude, there were years in my late 20s when I'm just sitting up all night, new card, driving enough cash. Thankfully, it's e-com, all of our merchant processors. I'm accelerating the receivables so that I can get them back in the door, pay the credit card a little bit more because we've got a winning ad. Obviously, we're not going to do that if the ads aren't firing. But when we've got a firing ad and Drew's ad has the perfect hook and it's crushing and we're getting a positive ROI at acquisition, we need to like quadruple down on that. But when the credit cards are maxed and you're waiting for the credit card company to give you a line increase, you've got to play this game. So man, there's a million stories like that. It's like completely wild, but we've had the people, the vision and the effort really behind how to do this creatively. Like most people would stop and go, we need to go out, raise capital. We need to dilute our equity. We need to take on, $5 million and just to get our ads to scale to the degree that we can be a $40 million business, $50 million.
And give up all the equity in the company. So you have no control.
And we just said, screw it. Like we're going to do this thing on our own in a unique way. And if we have a winning front end opportunity, we're not going to slam on the brakes if we don't have to. We're going to exhaust all creative efforts to get it there. Now, again, like I can't reiterate enough, if you're in an emerging growth business or your startup business, especially if you're a digital ads based company that does not have any sort of outside capital backed endeavors, you've got to pull off the gas. And so we've always had cash is king. It's like it runs through my head 24 hours a day, but it's conservatism. It's optimization of the cash conversion cycle. Like profitability, yes, has to happen. Top line revenue growth, yes, has to happen. But at the end of the day, if you don't have cash, you're not going to survive the ebbs and flows of this very, very volatile landscape. And the only reason we're still here is that we've got a combination of really, really inspired individuals, a founder who's got an extremely compelling vision, is charismatic enough to enroll a ton of people who believe in him, and some goddamn pretty good brass tacks ability to hold on to money.
Love it. I love it. So the thing that I just feel like it would be, I'd love to hear more about is, you have someone, like the guys on your team, Drew, who's like just a visionary. He like, that's who he is. And I can see it every time I've spoken to him or I see him speak, it makes me start thinking about things in my head. Like that's what a visionary does for you. He like shows you this path, right? And then you have other people on your team that are, really good on the marketing side. You have people that are really good on making sure that the ingredients are proper, the formulations are right, they're working. How hard is it to be the guy that's in control of the numbers and you have a visionary that's saying like, yeah, I mean, this is working and I think we should do this. And you're like, whoa. Take, we got to take 10 steps back here. We're bootstrapped here, buddy. Like we don't have the cash to do that. Was there a lot of friction between you and the visionaries at times?
Yeah, early on for sure. Early on, I was alarmed by the level of risk that this environment requires, because I was coming from clients at big companies that were very financially stable. And the clients that I had at Deloitte that were like life sciences startup based, they were pre-revenue and they'd taken on some huge capital injections. So they weren't really worried. Cash flow and like lean operating was not anything I was familiar with. And so I was quite alarmed initially. And once I kind of got a little bit more of a tolerance and an appetite for, lean business operations, even then it was still challenging. The reason it's worked for me is that I'm totally bought in on the vision, the industry. I love health and wellness. And then I understood what it was going to take. Drew is also very aware of the importance of having team members, especially business partners, who are going to disagree with him. I think one of the things that many founders and or just leaders in the startup space, and maybe you could apply this to just every business
I think
landscape,
every business, I think I know where you're going with this.
it's that if you surround yourself with yes men, dude, you're going to lose grip on reality.
Yeah.
And I've said this to Drew since day one, and he's appreciated this and invested in people who share the same high level goal, but may disagree on how to get there. Now, Drew is our fearless leader, and it's his decision at the end of the day. But we're all committed to giving him our honest feedback. And sometimes that's in step with where he wants to go. Other times it might look different. And he's always done a phenomenal job of weighing those different decisions and making decisions based on a variety of different, really intelligent insights or inputs.
Yeah.
And all credit to him, because that is not an easy thing for a leader. I think at times we had over 110 employees at one point, which was very, very large for us. And we had a full-blown C-suite. Like, there was an era for me where I'd set up the accounting shop after the first couple of years, and I was desperate to do something else. Like I said, I like novelty, and I chose the wrong route in accounting because you're doing the same thing every month, pretty much. Yeah. And so I was like, please give me another opportunity. I went out and started another business as well with my wife, and had been doing some of these other things, and I just needed a fresh scene. So we brought in a CFO. We'd had CFO, CMO, COO, CEO. So we had a robust C-level suite. And so things had definitely changed. And, from my opinion, that was one of our most difficult times, was just a lot of seats at the table, a lot of opinions, a lot of strategies on where to go and what to do next. And it turned our very agile watercraft that we could turn on a dime into like an aircraft carrier that took forever to turn and move the boat. And so even coming back to your earlier question, or like, how have we continued to operate amongst this, very competitive climate with significantly bigger players who've got Huberman and Rogan and Hugh Jackman and stuff on their portfolio of partners. And we're sitting here as a lean, mean machine that can just operate quickly and move into opportunities fast and pull out of opportunities fast. And so it's been to our advantage to stay lean the last 2 or 3 years, especially after, I think, experiencing what it was like to be more of a enterprise.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. So I think we've I don't want to, just because I know you like novelty, I don't want to exhaust the CFO part of this discussion. But, the one thing that I'd love to hear from you, and I mean, it would be something I definitely want to ask Drew when I talk to him as well, but I'd love to hear it from you as somebody who's passionate about this. How would some, the listeners here, obviously you check out Organifi. These guys are the real deal, doing the right things. How does someone really get the most out of supplementation, taking products like this? I think there's so much that's out there. And I feel like it's one of those things, and I even find myself, like we were talking about, I forget what it was, like hydrogen tablets the other day. I'm like, okay, let me check that and put it on my list of things to try. But it's like, okay, you tried this, you tried this, you try this, you try this. And then it's just like when you're working out or dieting, you're like, okay, keto didn't work, so I'm going to try this. And then, no, next shiny object, let me try that. Like, how do you get the most out of taking supplements?
Yeah, it's a great question, because it's, you leave kind of mainstream health in a lot of ways, and you go into this holistic health realm, and it's almost like drinking from the fire hose. It's overwhelming. And there's regulation, but it's not as strict as like pharmaceuticals, obviously.
Yep.
We've always said the big rocks in your life are lifestyle choices.
Yep.
If you think supplements are going to change your sleep alone, if you're having sleep problems, you're mistaken. If you think that it's going to give you a 6-pack immediately and you're going to lose 30 pounds, you're totally mistaken. It's lifestyle choices. So the big rocks come down to, honestly, man, it's like, are you sleeping sufficiently without support? Are you digesting properly? Like, are you having proper bowel movements? Do you have a healthy sexual drive? Like, these are the huge components of being a human being. Mm-hmm. And usually within those three, there's some level of deficiency or some level of challenge that you should start with lifestyle choices. All right, get to bed earlier, stop staring at your screen before you go to sleep. Make sure you're getting morning sunlight. Make sure you're hitting your your macronutrients in the forms of food? Are you getting a sufficient protein with every meal? Are you eating whole foods more than processed foods? Are you trying to orient to organic food choices? How are the relationships in your life? Check those boxes before you reach the supplementation. Supplementation can fill in the cracks, though. It can be the last missing piece. And the way that Organifi is oriented is that we build based on supplements being a complement to strong lifestyle choices. And so whether it's sleep, whether it's digestion, whether it's your fitness, whether it's your vitality, we've got supplements, and that's been our intention, is to create a diverse set enough of supplementation that can be those complements to important lifestyle choices. We've had a customer service division of our company since day one, where you can call in and work with a certified health coach who can support you in how to make those decisions sufficiently. And so, sometimes you get people who go, oh, I'm going to take a green juice because I'll lose 30 pounds in a month, right? That's how it works, right? They've done a detox cleanse or some of these like MLM schemes that say you're going to lose 100 pounds over the course of 3 months or whatever. And it's more like, no, there is the potential to lose weight by supplementing with one of our elixirs, for instance, but you're going to want to replace it with something. Like, are you chugging a Gatorade that's loaded with sugar, 1 or 2 a day? Maybe you should replace that with our red juice and just see what happens, because you're actually going to check a lot of boxes just by that replacement. Now, yes, it's going to be better for you if you add an Organifi product to your life, but if you replace something unhealthy in your life with it, you're going to see significantly better results. And so, that's kind of been our framework for looking at how supplementation can work in one's life. What we've always done so well is a lot of these things that nature provides are insanely effective for the human experience and human health and vitality, but they taste bad.
Yeah,
they're annoying because you got to take a handful of capsules or whatever.
Yeah,
Organifi's always had a really, really strong ability to take something that tastes gross, like ashwagandha doesn't taste good, and we can put it into a format that still tastes delicious while is healthy for you. It's low in sugar, it's relatively low calorie, it's a pretty low lift on your body just to be able to implement into your life. And it tastes delicious, which makes the routine and the ritual that much more powerful. When you look forward to having your green juice, red juice, and gold, or what have you, and that's what we call our sunrise to sunset kit. But when you're actually able to anchor an experience or a ritual that's healthy for you by something like, oh, it tastes good as well, you see just a lot better results.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So just, rapid fire here. What is, and you please make sure you say something that's in Organifi's product line here, but what is your favorite supplement?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I still have a green juice every day. I've had a green juice pretty much every day of my life since 2016, 2017. So that one's my favorite. It tastes great. It's a very unique taste. It doesn't have any weird alternative sweeteners in it. I'm a high energy guy, sometimes high cortisol guy. And so having a daily dose of ashwagandha is really, really supportive of me. One of the things we do with pretty much all of our products is we put in a clinically efficacious dose, which means it has, some form of scientific lab supported documentation that says it has reached a level of efficacy to make claims on. Ashwagandha at 600 milligrams in our Organifi green juice does that for regulating cortisol. So that's been huge for me. It's tough because we've got the best plant-based protein powder on the world, made with pea protein, which is high amino acids, very bioavailable, more bioavailable than many of the whey products that people are consuming, and it tastes delicious. I love our collagen. We've got 7 different types of collagen. It's really bioavailable. I really like our creatine gummies. I've been using creatine forever, and our Shilajit gummies. So I'm kind of on fire for the products that we've been putting out, especially the last couple of years. And we're a smaller team, so I have a lot more say now than I used to when it comes to products. Yeah. So I like the direction we're going.
So I like you kind of gave some basic things, right? You gotta be looking at your sleep. You gotta be looking at the way that you're, what you're eating, how you're eating. Try to eat real food, right? That's kind of, it goes without saying, move your body on a daily basis. But if someone said, okay, I'm checking those boxes and then I want to do the next thing, there's no other company that I know of out there that actually has glyphosate free,
Yeah.
like real efficacious products here. What would be like the low hanging fruit for somebody? It's like, hey, I want to give it a shot here. What do you think somebody should add into their life from Organifi?
I'm a huge advocate of the green juice. That's the most lifestyle based product that we have that I think everybody should be consuming in one way, shape, or form. And, all props to AG1 and Athletic Green. They make an inferior product, but I'm grateful that they've also supported in making the necessity for having an adaptogen based green supplement in your life. I think that if you're interested in health, that's kind of a very, very bare minimum to implement. Now, if you want to feel something, like let's say it's energy and vitality, Shilajit is a highly dense with minerals based resin that comes from the Himalayan mountains. And we get the world's top tier Shilajit called Prima V that we include in our gummies. There's plenty of Shilajit that go around the world, but you want specifically what's called Prima V from the Himalayan mountains.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like this tar-like substance that is absolutely packed. I mean, it's like thousands of years old. It's been sitting and accumulating into this substance. And I've taken it forever. I take it when I hit my 27-year-old, hormone crisis. I was scrubbing the world for adaptogenic, vitality supporting supplementation, and I found Shilajit. It tastes nasty, but our gummies have made it much more tolerable, borderline delicious, and it's one of those products that you feel. Which I always say, if you can feel a product, you should be a little bit skeptical, because that's usually like overnight feeling may not be a good thing. A lot of times that comes with like negative side effects. But in the case of Shilajit, it's got a ton of historical use. Most of our customers absolutely love the taste, and pretty much everybody who gets on it can feel the difference.
How are they feeling? What are they feeling?
It can be any, so like you can feel a boost of energy. It has a bunch of cognitive support. It can improve metabolism, so people experience even some form of weight loss. That's not a claim, anybody out there, that we cannot claim weight loss on it. But we've had a lot of people give us that feedback. Sexual appetite, vitality. Most men, especially if you're older, will feel a boost in libido. Mm-hmm. And it can actually support rising levels in testosterone as well. But it's adaptogenic. Like a lot of our products include adaptogens, which means it doesn't have a binary function in the body. It actually goes in and it's got a managerial type effect. It's a regulatory effect. And the adaptogen actually, let's say you need supportive energy levels, it will support the raising of energy, or it can be adaptogenic in the way that it can relax you as well. And so we include these adaptogens in many, many of our products. Shilajit is a really, really powerful one.
Yeah. So, I mean, like the one thing that I would just think is really interesting, you brought up before with your own life, and I know in mine as well, when you're a high achieving type A personality cranking down, I mean, I love the taste of coffee, unfortunately, right? So I can drink a lot of it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but managing cortisol is such an important part of the game, right? So do you feel like, between the combinations of the green juice and Shilajit and stuff like that can really help with the cortisol?
Absolutely. And I don't want to demonize cortisol. I think it's gotten a bad rap in a lot of cases, but like we thrive off of it. We get that. The way that cortisol works, it spikes in the morning and it should be sort of like tapering out over the course of the day. And that's what a normal cortisol, graph would look like. So I don't want to demonize it too much and say, oh, cortisol is bad always. You just want it to be regular. Yeah. You don't want a cortisol spike right before you go to bed, which is kind of after 5 years at Deloitte, when you go to the restaurant, have dinner, and then you go and just work at the bar until you go to bed, you're getting a cortisol spike and like hard set in my life. And I'm still trying to unravel those conditions that I set for myself in my early career. But you want this sort of regular cyclical, seasonal nature of the way that you express stress in your life. And so having something like a really powerful routine in the morning and the evening for in the morning, appropriately driving your cortisol high, and in the evening, appropriately lowering it to the degree that you can not only just fall asleep, but stay asleep over the course of the night. Because if you don't actually have your cortisol at a level that would be, sleep supportive, you might fall asleep because you're freaking exhausted. You're going to wake up at 2 or 3 a.m. because it won't be deep enough. And so having this like relationship to cortisol that moves in the way that nature intended it can be very much supported by something like green juice or Shilajit.
Very, very cool. All right, so let's talk, before we wrap up today, life beyond the office, right? Which is always, kind of most exciting. I obviously follow you on social media. I see you, your beautiful bride, beautiful family. You guys are always, I never see you inside, right? I always see you just getting in all that vitamin D. What are, you've done the meat grinder, and now you're in a different season in your life. What are the kind of things that you guys are doing on a daily basis? And I wanted to touch on, you collaborating and working with your wife, because I just think you guys have a beautiful, chemistry together. But, what are the things that you guys are doing on a daily basis to keep this level of vitality and drive up?
Yeah. Well, I mentioned I married my childhood sweetheart, and we got divorced in our mid 20s. We reconciled. So we are remarried, and we've been together for basically 20 years, minus a few. We were divorced for 3 years. And it was, oddly enough, during that time and that separation, I moved to Southern California, started working at Organifi. We were completely out of touch, but she left her career and started studying medicinal mushrooms, totally independent of each other. And we ran into each other at a health expo in 2018. Like, whoa, what are you doing here? And then kicked off our what we call part 2 of our relationship. So we've had some pretty wild synchronicities in our life that have led us back to each other. One of which includes this passion for health and wellness, this passion for adaptogens and medicinal mushrooms and these herbs that can be really supportive of one's health. And I mentioned we started a business on one of the specific types of mushrooms that my wife has been studying for years and years and years. We launched that product on a podcast. So one of our passions is just entering into fun, exploratory, but deep conversations around the things that have been most supportive for our life. Yeah. Everything from health and wellness modalities like medicinal mushrooms to some of the relationship related matters that we've had to navigate through and or learn from along the way. And through that, we've developed this sort of like life / brand cohesiveness that we live. So we are usually traveling to various locations, mostly across the West Coast. We live up in North Idaho in the summers on a beautiful glacier lake, water skiing, tons of hiking, family in and out all summer. And then we've got a place in San Diego, which is where most of my business is. Organifi is in San Diego, and building a home in Sedona. We've chosen Sedona specifically because I know how important nature is for my well-being. If I can be within 10 to 15 minutes of being deep into nature, whether that be the forest or the ocean or a lake or the mountains, I know that I'm going to be a significantly better person, professional, husband. The relationship with myself is better. And so I have aligned my life and it's been a trade-off, but I've aligned my life to the orientation that I am having close relationship with nature, because I know it's how important it is for me. I've had to trade stability. I've had to trade earnings. My earning potential is higher in a more traditional environment. And my life has a lot of chaos. There are days where I can be very flexible and go out at lunch on the middle of the lake and jump in the water. But there are days that are utter chaos. This space of startups and where we're at now, 7, 8 years into it, still operating with kind of this lean, mean machine model, is that there are seasons that are completely bonkers. That's and amazing. It's morning, noon, and night, 24/7 chaos and stress. And it's those white knuckle seasons that I was talking about. And so I've had to be very aware of what I am trading for. And for me, it's absolutely a net positive and absolutely worth it. Priorities for me are my relationships, my relationship to myself, my relationship to my wife, and my family and the people that I love. I include people like Drew and Will and these other folks at Organifi as legitimate family members. And those relationships are more important to me than the freaking green juice sales, for sure.
Yeah.
And so knowing the hierarchy of what's most important, and then letting things like how you make money in the world fit in around those, and just being really, really aware of when that career success, money driven component of me, which is very important, is pushing too hard on these other components that I deem more valuable to my overall well being, more valuable to the ultimate development of who I am as a human being and as a person. Because I have been in the life where I'm prioritizing the other, and I'm an a-hole. So I'd prefer allocating my portfolio of time and resources towards these things that make me extremely happy, satiated, and accommodate the best working version of myself as well.
It sounds like to me like you beat the game. I mean, like that to me is beating the game.
I wish I felt that way a little bit more, but no, I hear
from an outside source, man.
I zoom out and I'm just like very, very grateful. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's so cool. So the one thing I ask all the guests, and I have to ask this to you before we wrap up, but when you look back on your journey, personally and professionally, what's one moment that felt really small at the time, but it changed everything for you?
That's a great question. It's a great question. There's been so many little moments that I never would have. It's funny, the things you think are going to be big end up being like, whatever, dude. Wow, I worried way too much about that, or I put way too much energy into that. And then there's these little interactions that lead to something so powerful. And early in Organifi, I had just a blast going out there and trying to network with like podcasters, and these guys were like little celebrities in my life, right? Like these cool podcasters, these cool influencers. And so I was going to different health expos. I'd go to events that were going on in Southern California. And I was at a health expo in Austin, Texas, on behalf of Organifi. And this guy who I'd followed his YouTube videos for years, his name's Paul Chek. I ran into him at this event in Austin, Texas. He is a kind of like trainer of the celebrities and athletes for 80s and 90s. And so he'd built up a pretty big name for himself. And I saw him at this event and I just like stopped him and I was like, Paul Chek, man, I've been a big fan. Like I watched your like how to get a six pack videos when I was in college, and he was super sweet and very nice. And he was like, I'm starting the podcast. And I was like, oh my God, we'd love to sponsor you. And so what I thought was this very just like normal course networking type arrangement. We ended up getting a podcast deal out of it. Paul Chek has ended up being like my dear, dear friend. He's been a mentor to me. When my wife and I got remarried, he facilitated the ceremony and everything that led up to it, and has been a huge component of our life thereafter. His practice has evolved from just functional fitness modalities into this very expansive like mindfulness practice as well. He's good friends with Drew as well. And the business relationship has been very fruitful for Organifi. Also, his podcast has blown up and gone quite massive. But he has been just both a quantifiable, but also like qualified attribute to my life that has paid off more than I could ever measure. And, it's little moments like that where you don't know, but you're just out there doing earnest work from a place of integrity and authenticity. And these little seeds blossom. And I'm very, very grateful for that. But something that I thought was just like a random encounter from somebody that I looked up to ended up being this like wildly fruitful relationship.
You went and you shoot your shot and you ended up, winning. That's amazing.
100%.
So I know you're very active on social media, Organifi, et cetera. We're going to have everything in the show notes here, but for the listeners, where's the best place to follow Chase?
Yeah, I'm my personal Instagram. You're welcome to look me up, Chase Ramey. I have my same handle since I was in high school. So _Chasen_1. But you can reach out to me through Organifi as well. Organifi on social is really, really active. Organifi.com. My wife and I have had a podcast for 4+ years. We took a little bit of a break this year. We unfortunately lost our son when she was about 6 months pregnant. And so we took a few months off.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're getting back. Yeah, thank you. We're getting back into the swing of things here towards the end of this year. But we have a lot of content, 4 years worth of content. We have a company called The Medicine, MEDICIN, no E on the end of medicine. And I've got hours and hours and hours of, me rambling about Lord knows what. So you can find those as well, themedicine.com. But yeah, that's about it.
This was really, really awesome, man. I mean, the conversation that you think we're just going to talk about, green juice and how to, bootstrap a company to this, it was absolutely amazing for me. So I want to thank you for joining us today. And thank you to the listeners for joining us and going beyond the deal with the great Chase Ramey. I hope that you are having or have an amazing day. And let's continue to build something meaningful together. Thanks, Chase.
Thanks so much, guys.